So welcome everyone. It's wonderful to have you here today at this webinar for the Freelancer Academy hosted by 9am. I'm Marta, I'm the Growth Marketing and Events Manager at 9am, and I will be hosting the webinar today. Our guest speaker, Vanessa, is a HR expert with over 15 years of experience in the recruitment industry. She's also really passionate about training talent and HR professionals at her business, The Talent Hunter. So welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you. Great to be here again, Marta.
Oh, next slide. So before handing over to Vanessa, I just wanted to quickly let you know the structure of the webinar. So I'm just going to quickly explain what is 9am and what do we do for those who are new and haven't tried the product. And then we'll have our amazing speaker presenting, and at the end, we'll have some minutes to answer any questions you may have. Please type your questions in the chat during the webinar. You don't have to wait until the end. And last but not least, once the webinar is over, a survey will come up on your screen. Please complete it if you can. It will take you literally 20 seconds, and it would be great for us to have your feedback. So we define 9am as the freelancer operating system. So it is basically all-in-one tool that you need as a freelancer. Whether you are just starting your business or growing your business, we can assist you in getting new clients, arranging projects, receiving payments, and handling your finances. Everything is free, so please sign up and try it. I personally think it's a great product. And again, if you have any feedback, anything you think is missing, and you would like to see there, feel free to share your thoughts, as we are always looking for ways to grow. This is the QR code for signing up if anyone wants to try the app. And now I will hand over to Vanessa.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Great. Let me just share my screen so that everyone can see my presentation. So if you can just stop sharing in a second.
Yep.
And in the meantime, guys, apologies for the fan going. I'm based in Johannesburg in South Africa, and it is very warm here today. It is, 32 degrees. So yeah, it's a warm one. So there we go. I hope everyone can share my screen and I can get started. So what we're talking about today is how do you differentiate yourself in a crowded marketplace as a freelancer with a particular lens, should I say, on a freelancer. And the good news is that you actually are hearing this webinar and all of this information from myself, and I'm a freelancer. So everything that I'm going to chat to you about today, I use, I implement. I'm very proud to say I've run my own business for 5 years now, and I do a lot of gig work. I do a lot of freelancing, and I've actually never had to cold call for business or to try and sell my services too hard. So let's dive into a little bit more detail around that. And I basically want you to have the same, to be honest. So before we get started, a little bit of a brief introduction about who I am. As mentioned, I'm based in Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm a global sourcing trainer and sourcing specialist, which basically means I find talent. So I train recruiters how to find talent more effectively and more efficiently, because most recruiters these days are only looking in 2 places, and that's on LinkedIn and job boards. So I'm trying to explain to them that they need to diversify where they're looking for talent, because we have the whole internet at our fingertips. I'm also passionate about personal branding. So when I mentioned earlier, I haven't had to cold call for business in 5 years. It's because of my personal brand. I put it all down to that, how I've taken it online during the time of the pandemic and how it has stayed there pretty much, if I'm honest. So my side hustles, guys, it's 2023. We've got to have some side hustles. I do a lot of keynote speaking. I was in Amsterdam 2 weeks ago speaking. I'm already lining up things for next year. And when I'm not speaking or working, you normally find me behind my camera taking photographs. So these are some of the photographs that I have taken. Okay, so I want to actually just start with a quote, because I want to get us thinking about this whole thing around branding and how do we represent ourselves as freelancers. So companies take the time to consider their brand. They decide how they want to be seen and what they are known for in the industry. So think about the big brands, McDonald's, Nike, all of the major brands. They've really carved out their marketplace and they know what they want to be known for. Their brand can uplift them to more monetary success from their product or service awareness, or draw in the right type of employees. That's why I always say in recruiting circles, it's much easier to recruit for Google or Apple as opposed to a little startup. So what is it that the little startup has that a Google or an Apple cannot offer our candidates? But the question comes in, how does this translate into an individual? So an individual like myself, I'm a solopreneur. I don't have a massive marketing team or even a marketing budget, to be honest. So how do we actually focus on packaging our value offering, showing people what we do, and bringing in business? Because let's face it, we all like to eat, so we've got to bring in business so that we can afford to put food on the table. So this is where it comes down a lot to your personal branding. And I think that anyone these days, especially with AI now coming into play, needs to have a good personal brand. And this is for everyone, not just people who are freelancers. Literally, this can be for anyone. You all need to have a personal brand because people want to deal with humans and people don't want to deal with AI chatbots. So if you listen to Jeff Bezos, he says your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And it's basically, how do you make people feel? There's another famous saying that I love from Maya Angelou, which is, people won't remember what you said to them, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that's very closely linked to your brand. So how are you using your brand to make people feel better, to have a positive experience when they interact with you? And this is becoming more and more important because this will actually attract talent in your direction. Okay, excellent. So one of the things I encourage you to do is go and Google yourself. When is the last time you Googled yourself? Because as a freelancer, when you send your CV or your application or your portfolio to anyone, one of the first things the company is going to do is they are going to Google you. So do me a favor. Put your name into quotation marks, speech marks, whatever you want to call them, depending on where you are in the world, and type it into Google. And if there's a lot of people and you've got a very common name, like you're a John Smith or something, you can put in your name, and then I would say Vanessa Raath, South Africa, recruitment. And then I would see what comes up about me. And this is something that we actually don't do enough, but this is what your clients are seeing. So when you're applying for new gigs and new contracts and new roles, this is what people are doing. So you need to go and see, what do people see first? Because I think some of you might be quite surprised. Because what you want them to see is you want them to see your strong online brand. And this is great because you can actually manipulate this. You can put more relevant material, more recent material up on the internet, and then that is going to rank higher in Google results. So basically, why do we need to have the strong online brand? Let's look at a couple of reasons. And then what we're going to do is we're going to break down how you are going to do this as a freelancer. And the reason why we do this is your brand is like a talent magnet. We are using it to attract business to ourselves. Isn't it so much easier when someone's knocking on your door saying, hey, I need help with this, or can you do this piece of work for us? As opposed to you sitting around, it's great to chill on the couch and watch Netflix, but isn't it better when opportunities come knocking on your door as opposed to you having that panic of, I'm a freelancer, I don't know where my next gig is coming from, or I haven't worked for a couple of weeks, what's going on here? So if you can use your brand to keep the business coming in, that will be amazing. So let's look at 6 reasons why we need to have this outstanding online brand as freelancers. You want to be, as a freelancer, you've kind of reached that pinnacle in your career where you have basically become an SME or a subject matter expert. So you need to position yourself as much. You need to be able to be seen as the thought leader in the industry. So if you are specializing in, say, the supply chain industry or the finance industry or marketing or whatever it is, you've got to be talking about those things. Because by talking about them, people will respect what you say in that space. Now, don't keep telling the same story, but talk about different and exciting things that are happening in that industry. And then pretty much you will be seen as a thought leader because news is breaking from you or you coming up with new ideas in the space. So that is why an online brand is incredibly helpful, because you become the go-to individual in your chosen niche or industry. Also, if you've got a strong brand, people will trust you. They'll be like, oh, this person, they're good. They know what they're talking about. They're a subject matter expert. we trust them. We trust them because of their reputations. Okay, so you need to build a brand so that people trust you from the outset and they know that you are going to deliver good work. Also, this is important. Point number 3 is you want to be more memorable than your competitors. So if you are standing out more than your competitors, more people are going to contact you first when it comes to new gigs, new assignments, new contracts, because they remember you. So if you've done a piece of work for someone, stay in touch with them, keep in contact, make sure that you connected with them on the social platforms so that they can see what you are posting. It's all about that continued engagement to make sure that you are going to get more work from them. Now, a great online brand basically will help to sell you and your services. So if you are constantly turning up, I mean, I try and post, make a point of posting 3 times a week on LinkedIn, sometimes more if I've got more to say. But if I make a point of that, I'm always staying top of mind for people. When I was in this conference recently in Amsterdam, a lot of people said, oh yeah, I know you, I recognize you from LinkedIn. Because that's where I'm building a brand, because that's where all the recruiters are hanging out. So if you want to connect with recruiters, then LinkedIn's a great place to be building your brand. Also, next point, relationships. When you as a freelancer, a lot of freelancers are digital nomads. So it doesn't actually matter where you work. And your relationships can be all over the world. So I have friendships with people all over the world. I have people that I collaborate with. One of my partners that I collaborate is actually based in Italy, but he's Hungarian. So that's the nice thing of working as a freelancer, is that you're free to collaborate with whoever you want, whoever you click with, whoever skills complements you. And by having a good brand, people will be able to find you in order to get that collaboration happening and it's starting out. Now, your brand is pretty much your why. So before you can think about putting this brand together, you need to sit back and think, why? What's special? And we're going to dig into that a little bit deeper. But if you're having a problem to try and figure out your why as a freelancer, think about why you started freelancing in the first place. What is that unique skill that you feel that you can offer to many different companies, sometimes simultaneously, that nobody else can? And maybe it's a skill that you wouldn't need permanently on your workforce. Because remember, as soon as someone becomes permanent, it becomes an overhead, costs more money. So you've got to think, what is your why? So let's have a look. And guys, I'm monitoring the chat. So if you would like, I am happy to answer any questions that pop up while we go through that. But if there's no questions, we can go on to how are we going to build this strong online brand? Because as a freelancer, and pretty much as the rest of the world, it's also become a little bit of a non-negotiable. Samuel, you can use ads, to be honest with you. I've never used ads. I think ads are great if they are targeted. So if you are doing targeted advertising on Facebook, that is great. But I mean, think about it. Every post that you're doing on any platform, you're basically advertising your services. So you could talk about a successful project that's just concluded, maybe, you know, put in a couple of screenshots of what you delivered, if you're allowed to, of course, talk about a great experience. All of those are unofficial adverts. So it's how you think about it. But good question. So how are we going to build a strong online brand? Now, this is where a lot of people actually struggle with this. So listen carefully. Suzanne, before we move on, what type of LinkedIn content do you recommend? Anything that's in line with where you want to be known as a subject matter expert. So for myself as a talent sourcing trainer, I post a lot about talent sourcing, new platforms we can find people on. In the world of AI, it's how we can use AI for talent sourcing. But the main theme is always my niche industry of what I do. And that is my services as a talent sourcing trainer. As a single software developer, how can I be a thought leader in my industry? I'm not Microsoft and I'm not Facebook. Okay, so you're not, I think you mean you're not on Microsoft, you're not on Facebook. Well, listen, if you're a software developer, focus on building a brand on GitHub, Stack Overflow, dev.to, be on Reddit, get into meetup groups. Choose your area or your industry where your people hang out. Go and find your herd and build a brand there. As a software developer, you could be building a brand on LinkedIn, but you're going to get a lot of attention from recruiters. But if you haven't got a lot of work, maybe that will work for you. So you've got to think about, you know, where can you go and show your expertise? So a software developer codes. Where can you put your code? GitHub. Simple as that. Right, so let's move on to now crafting our personal brand. Okay, so we have to lay a foundation that can confidently and authentically build on. So we don't want to try and be something we're not. Okay, I'll give you an example. Is that you've got to be authentic, because if you're trying to be something that you're not, it's actually too difficult to keep up that kind of ruse and to keep trying to fool people. So just be yourself. I mean, as mentioned, it's hot today in Johannesburg. It's 32 degrees. I'm in a pair of shorts and flip-flops because that's me being authentic. Doesn't matter that I'm presenting a webinar. I am enjoying, being here, being with you, and just being comfortable in the way that I am dressed. So a couple of pointers on that is you want to find what is the special thing that is you. So what is unique to you, and make your brand all about that. You can't make it up. It has to be real, even though it could probably be a little exaggerated. So that for me is a very key piece of advice. So for myself, I'm very much an extrovert. So I like to see people, I like to network, I like to organize communities, I like to keep people connected. And I just do exactly the same thing online and I suppose in the recruitment industry. So if you like to code, we've got a software developer on the call, then it's the special thing about you. That is your passion. That's what you love to do. Start showcasing it a little bit more. I've just got another question come in. So Fabian said, as a software developer in Germany, it's currently easy to get full-time freelance job, which pays me for at least a year. Do you think it's still necessary to build a brand? You know what, Fabian, things can change quickly. We've all seen that with the global pandemic. We've all seen it with the recession in the US. I would say is that it's too dangerous not to build a brand, because what happens if the same thing happens in Europe? To be honest with you, if the same thing happens in Europe and suddenly you need to start looking for work and it's not as easy as it used to be, or we all know that there's Copilot that can now write code from an AI perspective, you want to prove you're a human being, how do you do that? Well, it's when people Google you, they make sure that you can be found. Okay, so I would still do it because you never know what the future holds. Okay, so if you want to try and think about this personal brand, you've got to do an inventory of your brand assets. So what are your skills and your credentials? What skills do you have through life? So for me, I didn't start out being a talent sourcing trainer. I've been a teacher. I've been a scuba diving instructor. I've been a recruiter. I've been an in-house head of talent acquisition. I've worked in employer branding. But all of those skills have literally solidified what I'm doing now. I can work with people, I can train people, I'm a teacher. So you've got to sit back and think, what have I done and what skills does that bring to the table? Sergey said, I think as a service provider, you're always working for your name, 100%, and that never goes away. Good point. So also, what are your passions and interests? Because I mean, there's a reason why you're freelancing. I freelance because I'm not a great employee. I don't like working for other people. I don't really like being told what to do. But I also like to have a bit of flexibility in my life. I don't want to have to work all day, every day if I don't want to. So why did you go into freelancing in the first place? What are you passionate about? Have you maybe got a side hustle that you actually need time to work on too? Like my photography, that takes up quite a bit of time. So I can't have a full-time job. And then also your core values and beliefs. And this is something that you've got to stick to your guns. What are your most important core values? Does this mean you can't go and work for certain companies? Myself, for an example, I'm a vegetarian, so I wouldn't go and work for a butchery that actually, is dealing with animal products, because it goes against my values and what I believe in. So, what do you stand for? What do you stand against? Who will you work for? Who would you love to work for? Who would you never work for? And I think that that's something that's really good to try and, solidify before you get started. And Suzanne, this slide actually talks to your points about what do you post about? And basically you're sharing your story when you are posting. You want to create engagement, loyalty, and connection. And no one can argue with your story because it's your story. You're talking from your personal experience. So you'll see, and you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm not difficult to find. And basically you can see that I'm always sharing stories. Something that I've done, something that's happened to me, an interesting person that I've met. So that's what it's all about. It's about becoming a good storyteller to help to get your brand out there. Also, you know, there's a lot of you on this call. There's over 100 people on this webinar at the moment. I invite you, you're more than welcome to drop your LinkedIn links to your profiles into the chat, and you can start connecting with each other. Because if you can associate with other freelancers who could maybe recommend you for work, that's amazing. Okay. If you want to, you know, connect with other people on other platforms, put on your GitHub profile. So if you're following top developers on GitHub, you are forking their code, you're looking at their repositories, that's a great way to be noticed because you're hanging out with the right kind of people. So it's about who you mix with that shows your credibility. I see I've got a quick question coming in. So let me quickly answer it from Ben. What do you think about essential skills as a software engineer means soft skills? So Ben, anytime that you're running your own company and working as a freelancer is you've got to have good communication skills. You've got to be able to write a good email. You've got to be able to talk to people on the phone. You've got to be able to sell yourself in an interview. So for me, it's communication skills. These are essential skills in, you know, as a freelancer. Obviously, your software tech needs to be up to date and you need to be up to date with the latest tech stacks and softwares, but definitely communication and just being polite. I mean, people don't want to work with someone who's unpleasant. Okay. Right. So let's move along. Keep putting the questions in the chat if you'd like. Okay. So basically, we are looking to create an offer that your clients will love. So as a freelancer, what is your value offering? So basically, you've got to get your elevator pitch right. So pretty much, what do you do? And this, you literally can have 1 or 2 sentences. So this is your value proposition. So this is what you do. What is the value that you provide to your clients in exchange for charging them? So I've already given you mine. I'm going to give it to you again because it was right at my introduction. And mine was, I'm Vanessa Raath. I'm a global talent sourcing trainer, and I am going to teach your recruiters how to find talent more effectively and efficiently than their competitors. And that's it. Simple. So you've got to work out very succinctly, what do you do? Okay. So another question. So we got people chatting over here. That's perfect. People putting in their LinkedIn. That's great. Perfect. Okay. Happy days. Question, Fabian. There we go. How do you do it? So not only what do you do, how do you do it? So I teach recruiters how to find candidates more effectively and more efficiently than their competitors. And I do this by training recruiters to not only look for candidates on LinkedIn and local job boards. I encourage them to go and look at other platforms like GitHub for technical people, Behance for creative individuals, or whatever industry that company is working on. So how you do it is your process. Give your service a unique name. My company name is the Talent Hunter because it's got to do with hunting talent. So you've got to give it a name that will help you to make it stand out. Okay, so I've just got a question come through. Let me answer that. I'm from Germany. The only game in town for me is being contracted via agencies due to legal issues. It seems to me that agencies, recruiters are less interested in brand, but usually filter by years of experience and hourly rate. Is there a way to leverage my brand effectively in this situation? Yes, because your brand will override your years of experience and your hourly rate. So if you have a great brand out there, they're going to be like, sure, he might be a year short on experience, but look at this guy. He's a shining star. He's posting, he's helping other people. He's involved in the community. He's running meetup groups. Maybe we can overlook the experience side. So if you've got a brand to back up kind of what you're doing, it stands you in better stead. Okay, perfect. Let's keep going over here. Okay. So basically, you've got to choose your platform, and there's loads of platforms out there. I mean, it's not like 20 years ago when there was only LinkedIn or Facebook, and LinkedIn has been around longer than Facebook. Find your place. Like if you're creative, look at Behance, look at Dribble. Instagram, photography is amazing. So think about where you're going to hang out. Do you have a YouTube channel? So, you know, you've got to think about what are you putting out there and how easy is it to be found. That's a big thing. So where do people know that they can find you? Where are you posting regularly? Where are you making a lot of noise? Because that's where they know that they need to go to connect with you. So for me, it's always amazes me that recruiters are looking for like graphic designers on LinkedIn, where there's a lot of platforms where people can be putting portfolios of all of their graphic design work that isn't LinkedIn. Okay, Sam, let's see. I'm Sam Recruiter who's open to work under several regimes, from contingent to retained. Feel free to message me if you're curious. So guys, if you're looking for work, there's Sam. He's volunteering his services. Okay. Right. And you've worked for 5 or 5 hours, I'll probably go through. Absolutely, guys. But remember, there's always going to be times when you will not be, you'll be between assignments, or you're having a bit of downtime. Then just take the time to update your socials. If I had 5 hours of work, trust me, I also would be doing the work and getting paid for it. But you've got to work building a brand into your day-to-day life. That's just the way it's going to be. Okay, next question. I'm from Germany and I get contacted by German companies for freelancing, but they also restrict the location of the job, either Germany or EU. The reason they give is GDPR. Yes, right. That is a real issue with GDPR. How does find work from anywhere freelancing jobs in Germany? See, the problem that also comes into play now is that if you're not based in Germany, then it has tax implications, because that company has to have freelancers that are based in Germany. So you can work for a lot of companies globally. A lot of them outsource third-party HR and payroll services. You've just got to find the right jobs. So get onto the right platforms. Upwork, 9 a.m. You will be able to track down these roles. Okay, now remember, choose your target audience. Not everyone's going to be your ideal client. So whatever you're posting, whatever you're trying to attract, make sure you are sending it in the right direction. So you maybe want to connect and see quite a few people in here like software developers or telecommunications professionals. You want to connect with professionals who are on the same level as you, maybe who are already employed, but would be able to say, hey, come and work for us. I'll get you through the HR system. Okay. So here is your target audience. What are you posting for? And I think that a lot of people think that, you're only going to be found if you're on like a platform like LinkedIn. But amazingly, there's recruiters out there who look at the whole internet. So they'll look at who's members of meetup groups, who's posting on Reddit, who's attending conferences. They follow hashtags. So you need to make sure that you look good everywhere. And that's why I said to you, go and Google yourself at the beginning of the session, because we want to know everything before we reach out to you. So do that regularly and make sure that on all of your platforms, you have a compelling bio, you've got a great headshot, because no one wants to find something dodgy that maybe you posted during university, and it's actually quite easy to find these days. So just make sure that you look good. Okay, so I want to answer some questions before we move on. Okay, there's Freelancer Map, which is the main platform in Germany. Okay, that's perfect. Do you offer coaching consulting for remote freelance software developers? Unfortunately not, but I'm sure that you could find a business coach or something that could do that. We've got a product designer from Hamburg. If you want to connect, that sounds great. And that's another thing a lot of freelancers have. Well done, Julian, got your own website there. That's amazing. That's a great place to be found. Next question is, clients usually want to work with me full-time. How to convince them to work with my agency where my team builds the project and I check and guarantee the quality? Mahal, that's actually a really good question. And do they really need to know to that level who's doing the work if you're checking it anyway? Is that not something? I mean, maybe it's cheaper for them to hire an individual freelancer as opposed to an agency. It could be a monetary thing, but that is very interesting. Okay, Simon, good luck with your freelancing career. Okay, so another thing to do to stand out on the socials, and a lot of people get confused about what they should be posting, is it's really great to actively share news about your industry. So as I say, be the person who breaks news, talks about new developments, what's happening in the AI space in your space. Just be that kind of person, because that will also, people like sharers. So the more you share, the more people are going to gravitate towards you. Now, well done, first of all, to everyone here who's sitting on this webinar, because you're obviously interested in building a freelancing career. You're investing in yourselves. I mean, we had the old question there of if you had an hour of work or you had an hour to listen to a webinar, which would you rather do? So I'm really pleased to see everybody here. But another thing we could be doing is getting more involved with community. So there's a lot of people I see over here, lots of different roles coming into the chat, you know, LinkedIn links, and there's quite a few different roles, but there's also a lot of similarities. I see there's a lot of UI, UX people, product specialists, software engineers. What about building a community? So what about thinking about building a community or putting yourself on 9AM's platform to have a community? So that would be really good. That community, you can look at volunteers, you can help other people, you can build groups. There's lots that you can do. But the power of a community is really good because you can always bounce ideas off each other. Another thing is try and find someone. So there's a lot of people I see on the call here saying they're just starting out as a freelancer. I'm sure there's a lot of people over here who've been doing this for a long time. So try and find someone who's kind of done this, been there, done that. You can have an official mentor, you can have an unofficial mentor, and just try and follow in their footsteps. Even reach out to them. Maybe you can collaborate together. So it's good to partner with like-minded individuals within the same niche. And again, the more people who know that you are freelancing, the better. So tell everyone that you're freelancing, you're open to opportunities, family members, neighbors, people you studied with, ex-colleagues, ex-clients. Just let them know, because they're going to, something's going to pop up and they'll be like, oh yes, I just spoke to this person, they're available. So it's always good. You don't know who knows who, and that's the beauty of it. Okay, and then last point, a portfolio. So no matter what industry that you're in, I want you to think about, having a portfolio, some way of evidence that you have got that you can show at the drop of a hat. So as someone gets in touch with you, it's not like, oh, give me 2 or 3 days to put some evidence together. You have a breakdown of the services you offer, some evidence of the previous projects that you've worked on. This is critical. So whatever format it might be in, it might be probably going to be digital, maybe a PDF, it could be a portfolio on a page. So you've just got to start thinking about what is the best way to represent your skill set. And guys, when I go back and answer a couple of questions, those are my contact details. As I say, connect with me on LinkedIn. Is probably where I'm most active because my target is recruiters. My email address, I would love to hear from you. So let me just go back in a few questions. How can I effectively allocate time to develop and work on my personal brand while maintaining a full-time workload? So for me, I always just set aside a couple of 10-minute slots a day, morning, lunchtime, and afternoon, where I can go into different platforms, comment on things, comment on other people's platforms. Maybe it goes to 15 minutes, but I make sure that I just get into the habit of doing that. And then I'm on those platforms any day. So my advice for achieving this balance is break it into bite-sized chunks, start with twice a day, and just make sure that you're going around all of your platforms where people might be asking you work-related questions. IT freelancers, you are a bit luckier because there is a need for IT skills, but you never know. That might change. We've got to be really careful. AI's, very much mixing up the world of work. I think it's going to have big changes. So do we not need to have a brand, or does everyone need to have a brand to prove that we're not robots in the future? It's something to think about. Yes, you can improve your qualifications. Absolutely. It's something that we just have to focus on doing all of the above these days, which I know is a lot of work. Okay, next question. Right, that's it. Most reason for project reactions work, burn through my savings, and then I have finally found a good 6-month contract. Good. You never had this much trouble, but also the first time I went purely freelance. And that's what I'm saying, is you never know what the market's going to be doing in the future. So if you have a brand, at least you have something to fall back on, and hopefully the opportunities are coming to you. Remember, this is the bottom line of why we build a brand. Opportunities are going to come to you. You don't always have to be going out and searching for new roles. Okay, so that's trying to see you find a good 6-month contract. Feel stupid for holding out for so long. The thing is that it's very subjective. How long should you hold out for? Very difficult question to answer, because it depends how long can you afford to feed yourself. I mean, I've had quite a bit of time between contracts and projects before, and during that time, it's when I upskilled myself. I learned new sourcing techniques. I watched YouTube videos. I worked on my brand. To be honest with you, as being a freelancer now for almost 5 years, I would never go back into full-time employment, and I can see that you don't want to either. So I get what you're coming from. And I just think that, you know, don't worry about how long you held out for. It's happened. Rather focus on the next gig. You think robots will have a brain in the future? Yep, they might have a brain, but they're still not going to be personable. How do you make a portfolio when your work is not visible on a homepage or like software architects? You can make repositories as a software architect on GitHub. Okay, you can show, you know, take a screen recording of your code, show what happens when your code runs. You can record that on something like Loom. I think that that's important. How do you figure out what the going rate is for your line of freelancing work? That's a very difficult one because it all depends on demand. So for example, if you're like a Golang developer at the moment in Europe, you're probably going to get a much higher rate. You know, I think that what we have to do is you have to start thinking about is what is the demand for your skills and how many other people are offering the service. So for myself as a global talent sourcing trainer, there's only about 6 or 7 of us who do this in the world. So, you know, that does dictate cost and price and all of those things. Okay, I'm just going to get some more questions quickly. Thanks. Okay, Ben, thank you very much. We're all done. Marta, I don't know. I'm done. If I don't know if there's any more questions. Wojciech said AI can be much more personalized than any human being. I will argue with you on that one. I don't agree with that at all. I find ChatGPT to be very verbose, never gets to the point, and you can spot it a mile away. I'm not saying don't use it, but always proof before you put out the content it produces. Julian says, I found that job titles and buzzwords change a lot, even though the content does not. Should I stay on the same title or try and change the different ones depending on current market focus? Julian, you can always give a couple of options. So, I mean, if you're a Java developer, but now you do Kotlin 2, Java/Kotlin developer, just make sure that your profiles, wherever they are in your CV, are keyword heavy, because a lot of recruiters are searching using keywords. The problem with sharing code is the code usually belongs to the client and cannot be shared. Absolutely, I completely agree with that. So write your own code and share that. Yes, Tash, absolutely. Rates per hour would differ. I do charge differently to my European clients to African ones. Is it better to put everything directly or indirectly related to your job onto the portfolio or tailor it to the exact required skills? Daniel, so you can have a portfolio which has got all of your skills and everything that you've done, but when you're reaching out to the recruiter or company, tailor that to the required skills of what the role is looking for. Okay. Sure, Marta, there was a lot today, a lot of questions.
That was great. Yes, so many questions. There anyone else wants to ask anything else, or I'm gonna steal the screen in the meantime.
Yeah, there we go. But that was good. I enjoyed that. A lot of good questions.
Just in case anyone else wants to scan the codes. Otherwise, I think we can just wrap up.
Cool.
So yeah, thank you everyone. If you have like any other questions that you would like to ask, you can either send us an email or connect with Vanessa on LinkedIn. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you very much, Vanessa, for sharing such a rich presentation. And yeah, again, those of you who don't have a 9 AM account, feel free to reach out. We can help you setting everything up. And I think that could be all. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you very much. Cheers all.